Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, it is still the beginning of the month. We did our Senate prediction a few days ago for the 2022 midterms, which are coming up in just a little bit over a month from now. So we're going to dive in today and fill out the governor's map, and we're going to do a prediction today because there are 36 state houses, governor's mansions up for grabs here. And it's important that we analyze the state of these races today so we get a picture of what's going to happen a month from now, especially in a lot of these swing states where you are going to potentially see some blue governorships flip to Republican, and then you will see some potential election law changes ahead of 2024, but also just policy changes in general that will change a lot of these states, and you have a lot of very consequential candidates that are running in some of these places that could really terraform their states and make them conservative strongholds for years to come. So we are going to fill out this map, but first I have to tell you guys about our very good friends over at Noble Gold. Did you guys know that silver prices are low right now because investors are selling their holdings because of a turn down in demand? Once fears subside, though, we could see a surge in demand for silver as consumers come back. A perfect time to get your silver IRA started. And this month you'll get an incredible free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin with a qualified IRA of $20,000 or higher. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now at 877-646-5347 to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. I also have to tell you guys about redeaglepolitics.com because a lot of people have been asking me about the Herschel Walker situation. I'm not doing a video on it on the channel. I do have a video about it on the website. I also wrote an article about the 3 likeliest possibilities for the midterms. For just $5 a month, you could sign up, you could join the Discord, get all my articles, get all my exclusive videos that do not make it onto the channel. The link is in the description down below. So we're going to start now and fill out this map because there's 36 governorships. That's quite a bit. There's a lot more that are up for grabs on midterm years than presidential years or off years. So we're going to start out filling out the safe Democrat governorships here, and then we'll go into the safe Republicans and work our way down to the likely lean and tilt states. So California, that one is going to be safe Dem, no questions about it. Same thing with Hawaii. Illinois as well is probably going to go blue. It'll be closer than it usually is at the presidential level, but still probably by around 12 points. It's going to go blue. The state of Maryland, the state of Massachusetts, those will also be in the safe Democrat column. So that's it for the safe blue governorships here. Now let's fill out the safe Republican governorships. We have Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Ohio. DeWine probably is going to win easily. And then you have the state of Texas. I continue to believe that Greg Abbott will win by more than 10 points. You also have the state of Florida. Charlie Crist campaign is awful. I believe DeSantis is going to win by more than 10 points at the end of the day. They're putting that in the safe column. We also have the governorships of New Hampshire and Vermont up here. So that is 23 in the safe Republican column, 11 in the safe Democrat column. Now to fill out the likely Democrat states, we'll start off with New York. Lee Zeldin is running a good campaign in the state of New York. He's hitting Kathy Hochul on crime on her record. He's capitalizing off of the unpopularity of the previous administration as well. But at the end of the day, I still believe that New York is New York, and while it will be closer than a lot of people expect, it's probably going to go to Hochul by around 8 points or so at the end of the day. So we also have the state of Connecticut. Bob Stefanowski, he ran a very good campaign in 2018. All he's done in 2022 has pandered to the left, and it really hasn't helped him at all. He's struggling in the polls. He's trying to pander to voters that are not going to vote for him instead of actually trying to put together a winning message to grow a coalition in the way that Youngkin did in Virginia, or the way that you could even say Christine Drazan is doing in Oregon, which we'll get to that in a minute. But you talk about these deep blue states, you don't necessarily do better in them than your standard Republican by doing nothing except pandering to your opposition and people that are not going to vote for you regardless, while simultaneously stabbing your own voter base in the back. So Connecticut, we'll put that one as likely D. We'll also put Colorado in the likely D column as well. So we have 13 to go. We're going to start off by filling out the likely Republican seats now. We'll start off with the state of Georgia. Brian Kemp is polling fairly well. Stacey Abrams is running an awful campaign. I don't know what she's doing. She must be just campaigning like at McDonald's that are empty or something, and she's just nowhere to be found, and she's not even really trying. She's on the ballot. She's going to lose by far more than she lost by last time. I think Kemp's going to win by 7. He'll do a few points better in the Atlanta suburbs than he did last time, which is really saying something. He'll buck the trends there in the state of Georgia, and he'll probably win by around 7 points, give or take. So that's it for the state of Georgia. We also, in the likely Republican column, have the state of Alaska as well. The state of Alaska, the only reason why I'm putting it in the likely red column is because they have their weird top 4 primary ranked choice voting system. You have a former governor running as an independent. Who knows what the result is going to be? The incumbent Dunleavy, he should be able to win in the state fairly easily, but it could very well be within 10. So we're going to just safeguard that state right there and put it in the likely Republican column. So without further ado, I think it's important that we move on to the lean Democrat states, of which there are several here on this map. We will start off with the state of Rhode Island. This one very well could be a surprise flip for the Republicans because you have a decent candidate in Ashley Callis running up against an awful candidate in Dan McKee, the current governor. He was not actually elected. He took over for Gina Raimondo when she went to go work in the current Brandon administration back last year. And he hasn't really had high favorable ratings, and he couldn't even get a third of the vote in his own primary running up against multiple candidates. The only way he really even won was because of the fact that he was the incumbent running against multiple individuals there, and he's not very popular. This one could be close. Alan Fung appears to be in good shape in his congressional run in Rhode Island. We've really yet to see a whole lot of data out of the state of Rhode Island, so I'm kind of very cautious to put it in the Republican column or even in the to be determined column, which is a new column that we'll use for the month of October as things do change rapidly down the stretch in some of these states. But Rhode Island, as of now, we'll put it as lean D. Also in the lean D column, we have the state of Michigan. It really does pain me to say this. I despise Gretchen Whitmer, but it does seem as if she is poised to win re-election here, even in this Republican-leaning national environment. And I said from the beginning that she would be a formidable opponent, despite the fact that she is unpopular because she has a base, because she has resources. I don't exactly know why a lot of people like her, but they do. And Republicans in the state, the Republican Party in the state for decades has been a little bit incompetent. Trump's victory in the state really said a lot more about him and his base appeal across the Rust Belt than really anything else. But I will say this about Michigan. I do believe that Tudor Dixon is going to make it close. I do not believe that she is going to lose by 15 to 20 points, as some of these polls have said. And notice how all the polls have Whitmer at 50, a lot of them vastly oversampled Dems. Even the Trafalgar poll that had Dixon down 6 vastly oversampled Democrats as well. I believe this is going to come down to a couple of points. I think the margin will be closer than people anticipate, than people expect, but I do anticipate Whitmer to end up winning at the end of the day by a closer margin than it was by in 2018, by the way. You have people that are going out there saying, oh, Dixon's like going to lose Macomb County and bottom out in West Michigan, and that's not entirely true, especially as that was kind of her base in the primary. And even though that doesn't necessarily always carry over, she does have a decent support base enough to win at least those counties. So that's it for the state of Michigan. Other lean Democrat states on this list, we have Minnesota. Scott Jensen is not really the best challenger. to Tim Walz from what I've seen. Tim Walz is somebody that is also unpopular among a wide variety of Minnesotans. He's a very divisive figure, kind of like how Whitmer is in Michigan. His track record is not really all that great regarding crime and regarding several other issues, but Jensen's not really the best candidate. He's not hitting him hard enough. He's spending time caving, and again, it's not really working out for him all that well in the state of Minnesota. And I believe that at the end of the day, Republicans could end up flipping the Attorney General's race. That is one to watch. There are some House districts there, like the 2nd District, that I believe will flip. But in terms of the governorship, while it will be closer than the state was at the presidential level in 2020, it's probably not going to flip Republican. So, beyond that point, we're going to go to the lean Republican states here. We'll start off with the state of Wisconsin. Tim Michels is leading a lot of the polls right now over Tony Evers. It's still neck and neck in the polls, which usually means if it's the state of Wisconsin that the Republican is up by a sizable margin. We could be moving this into the likely Republican column at the end of the day. Tim Michels did very well in the primary. He did well in the Driftless area, and he did respectably well in the WOW counties, the 3 counties surrounding Milwaukee, if you look at this on this map, that tend to give statewide Republicans and down-ballot Republicans a higher share of the vote than they give Trump. And it's very evident that Michels is going to be the favorite. This is probably, at this point, the most likely governor's race to flip Republican. I believe it will at the end of the day, and Ron Johnson is likely going to outrun Michels by a couple of points as well. So Wisconsin will be in the Republican column. Once again, Tony Evers is somebody that ran as this fake moderate. He said, I will cut your taxes. We'll focus on infrastructure. He's really done anything but except virtue signal to the left on social issues time and time again, and has been very weak on crime, by the way, as well, which is an important issue among independent voters, not just across the Rust Belt in the Midwest, but nationwide. So, up next, we have the state of Kansas. We haven't had a lot of polling data out of Kansas, but just because this is a red wave year, because you have a statewide officer that is running on the Republican ticket against Laura Kelly, who is not like vastly unpopular the way that Kobach was to a lot of the electorate. I believe that Kansas this cycle is going to flip. It's not going to flip by a massive margin because Laura Kelly can play the rhetorical game during election season fairly well. She could do her fake moderate shtick, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think this will flip just based off of the national environment alone, and Derek Schmidt will defeat Laura Kelly in the state of Kansas. So we go west. We go to the state of Arizona, where Kari Lake is doing a phenomenal job in the general election campaign, phenomenal messaging. Meanwhile, Katie Hobbs is nowhere to be found. And a lot of people will be eating their crow, the people that called Lake unelectable, the people that called pretty much every candidate Republicans put up in the state of Arizona unelectable. They all seem to be poised for victory. Even Masters is closing in on a lot of polls against Mark Kelly, who's below 50% in a wide variety of polls. And in the aggregate, he's performing far worse than he was at this point during the 2020 election. So Arizona, Kari Lake, she's running a good campaign. I believe that she is going to end up winning at the end of the day by probably around 4 to 5 points or so, if not by even a wider margin. We'll just have to wait and see in the next month or so how the race plays out. But the bottom line is Kari Lake is a fairly solid candidate, better than a lot of people even anticipated, some of the doubters anticipated, and Katie Hobbs is an awful candidate. She's nowhere to be found. So I believe that Arizona at the governorship level will go red by close to 5. Give or take. We might move this into the likely column by election day. So the state of Nevada, the last state here that would be classified as lean Republican, this state here has been moving right quietly for the past decade. And Republicans decided to put up a county-wide elected official from Clark County, which is where the population center is. He was a sheriff, and like I said, crime is a big issue that definitely plays out well if you nominate a sheriff. And also, on top of that, you have to look at trends. We could talk all day about how the state party apparatus that kept the state blue for so long has virtually collapsed. But looking at trends, even in Clark County, this is a county that voted for Obama by 14 in 2012. It voted for Biden by just a little bit over 9 points. And you talk about trends among white working class voters and Hispanic voters, two of the largest constituencies in Clark County. And this just has to get within 6 points or so in order to win the state off of that fact alone. I believe that it will. I believe that Joe Lombardo is a fairly solid candidate, and he's going to end up winning by a few points at the end of the day over Sisolak, and that'll be another flip into the Republican column. So now we're going to go to the tilt Democrat states, and we're going to start off with Maine. This is arguably another state that could be put in the to be determined column. You have Paul LePage running, who always manages to somehow eke out a victory in some possible way. And this is potentially another year where he could. He's going up against Janet Mills. Janet Mills is the current incumbent. She's not exactly all that popular. And you look at somebody like Paul LePage, he is a warrior. A lot of people say he was Trump before Trump, and he still was able to get elected in Maine, even in 2014, where the third-party vote share was much lower than it was in 2010. There have been some polls that have him down by a likely margin or so, but polls in Maine were downright awful in 2020, and we know this, where Susan Collins was supposed to lose by like 5 to 10, and she ended up winning by around 10. So Maine is a very interesting state. It is very hard to poll, but I do believe that as of right now, we'll keep it as Tilt D, and we'll wait and see. So up next, we have to go to the Tilt Republican column, of which we are going to look into the state of Oregon. And I did a video on this as well, because it's like, why is Oregon Tilt Republican? It's like we're going back to the 2019 Red Oregon meme. And it is actually true, because you have the very unpopular Brown administration. Kate Brown is their current governor, vastly underwater. A lot of people hate her. Republicans hate her. Democrats hate her. Independents hate her. Everybody doesn't really like her. Her protege is running on the Democrat ticket, Tina Kotek. And there's an independent candidate who is, in my opinion, taking votes away from both. Betsy Johnson, who is running, and the Republican candidate is the aforementioned Christine Drazan, who is running a decent campaign so far. She's up in every poll. Even if the third-party vote share in the polls decreases over the next month, I still believe it probably would not be that much of a net negative to Drazan. Could even be a net positive, because if you look within a lot of these polls that we've seen in a head-to-head matchup between Kotek and Drazan actually performs better. So we'll have to really wait and see how it plays out. But as of right now, I'm going to put Oregon in the Tilt Republican column. Every single poll has Drazan leading by a couple of points or so. It's going to be close. It's going to be interesting. But this very may well be that year, and this might be that governorship. I mean, we saw Kansas in 2018 flip Democrat. We saw Maryland and Massachusetts in 2014 flip Republican. I mean, these happen, especially during these midterm years. So up next, we have two other states that we have to get to, New Mexico and Pennsylvania. We'll save Pennsylvania for last, but I'm going to put New Mexico in the to be determined column. Their current governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is not really that popular, and she is running up against Mark Ronchetti, who was that famous weatherman who performed very, very well in the 2020 election. I believe he got the Senate race under 6 points or so, which that's impressive, especially because it's easier to win a governor's race as a member of the opposite party of the state's partisan lean than it is a federal race, whether it's a House race or a Senate race there. So it's interesting. We haven't seen a lot of polling yet. The polling that we have seen was from a couple of months ago. Has it fairly close, but we'll have to see. Ronchetti is an overperformer compared to the polls from what we saw during the 2020 election. So we'll put this one in TBD, to be determined. We'll also do the same with the state of Pennsylvania, where the Republicans nominated Doug Mastriano. He did better in the primary despite being vastly outspent compared to what anybody originally anticipated. And right now, he's down in the polls. The polls were neck and neck at the beginning of the summer. Right now, he's being outspent yet again, 22-1. and still he is holding his own. And if you actually apply the polling error from Western Pennsylvania, because polls keep missing voters in Western Pennsylvania, they were awful in the primary for both the Senate race and the governor's race. If you apply the same polling error, Mastriano would win and Oz would win by a surprisingly big margin. However, we don't exactly know what's going to happen just yet. Mastriano, he is starting to run ads. We'll see what happens over the course of the next month, but this is a race where anything can happen. Anybody that tells you it's a lost cause, like what Doug Ducey said, is incredibly inaccurate. And this is still very much a dogfight, especially when you take that spending gap into account. So here we go. 30 seats for the Republicans, 18 seats for the Democrats, and there are 2 governorships that I have yet to really finalize putting them in a column as of right now. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.